Are you depressed? Anxious? Do social situations fill you with dread, or do you have difficulty connecting to others? If you have any or all of these problems, try RPG. RPG is a natural, therapeutic way to confront your problems in a controlled environment, allowing you to get out into life again, confidently. RPG may be habit-forming. Side effects include dizzy spells, erectile fumbles, involuntary cloud kill, traumaturgy, and critical shits. Ask your doctor if RPG is right for you. Hi, I'm Corey, and this is The Dead Unicorn, a tabletop role-playing game club where we play and discuss games far beyond just Dungeons & Dragons. In fact, tabletop RPGs can be many things. A board game, a battle simulator, a collaborative story. But can it be a tool for therapy? Daniel Hand, a therapist and member of the British Association for Counseling and Psychotherapy, tries to answer this question in his book, Role-Playing Games and Psychotherapy, A Practitioner's Guide.
When people come to therapy, as I'm sure you're aware, you've got some difficult stuff to get through, and it can be hard, especially if you've been abused or you've suffered some kind of trauma. The thought of talking about these emotions, talking about these feelings, these experiences, these thoughts can be, it can just be too much for a lot of clients. And so if you make it fictional, if you help the client create a character and put them in a fantasy version of Japan and set them up against ninjas in a haunted forest, all of a sudden, the client's not thinking about themselves, they're thinking about what the character's getting up to. And then you can go, oh, okay, so I wonder what the what the character was thinking about at this when that dragon appeared out of the woodwork. How did you feel? How would you feel in that situation? And as we all know, it's so much easier to give advice to other people than it is to give advice to ourselves. So if we can give advice to the character, we'll be able to take a step back and go, okay. So that's what you'd say to them. Is it something you could say to yourself, possibly? Just a thought.
Role-playing has a storied history with therapy. Play-acting out situations go as far back as Sigmund Freud. But role-playing games have additional elements. Dice, character sheets, loot, experience points, just to name a few. So when do you pull out those dice?
That is, and I'm afraid you're probably going to hear this one quite a bit today, is going to depend very much on the client. Some clients will require no dice at all. They are kind of it becomes a storytelling exercise. The dice, as you know from your own gaming, they add a bit of excitement to the proceedings and what's going to happen next. It's not just a case of, oh, okay, yeah, I'm walking down the road. Oh, there's a dragon, it's dead, moving on. It's all about creating engagement and making the process enjoyable enough for the client to come back and sit through the difficult experiences, the difficult emotions.
This sounds wonderful. I can pay my therapist to be my game master and run me through a dungeon. Well, hold on. Therapy is there to help people work through their psychological issues. RPGs are just one of many tools a therapist can use, and it might work better on certain kinds of people.
Far and away, the best group of people who respond to it are the people who would otherwise struggle to engage with the therapy, so we're talking young clients, children, young people who've just gone through a trauma, and just people who are very insular and who just don't really want to talk about themselves, even though they kind of know they should. Because a big problem with therapy is dropout. People come along, they think they're ready for it. Yes, let's go. Then you get to difficult topics, and it's like, do you know what? I can't do this. I'm not ready. And that's where it's that group of people that it's absolutely perfect for. In terms of demographics, male, female, age, background, I'm going to be a bit haughty here and say, actually, no, it really does apply to absolutely everybody.
Using RPGs in therapy is brand new, and there's not a lot out there for therapists, which is why Daniel has written his book. He talks about having to create bespoke adventures for each client.
The beginning of it was very much no, okay, so right, you want to do this, you want to do that. Okay, we'll do this for you. We'll do cowboys for you. We'll do fantasy for you. We'll do space cowboys for you. We'll do Star Wars for you. Who was it who said they want to do superhero? And yes, it was a lot of juggling. But after you've done it for any length of time, you've just got a, a library's worth of worlds and adventures and characters and NPCs and magic spells. And one of my favorite magic spells was one we came up with that just made people swear. Its entire purpose was I cast this spell and that person just says something inappropriate. I loved it.
So what does an RPG therapy session look like? For me, I have a group of friends, and we have a party with snacks and drinks. We sit around a table or online, laughing and riffing on each other. In the therapy room, things can look a bit different.
So for me personally, I only work one-on-one, and that's actually kind of why I wanted the book to come out, because you know what RPGs are like. 9 times out of 10, you've got to have a huge group of people. Okay, huge is a bit of an exaggeration, but you've got to have a whole 3 or 4 people.
I never go above 5.
That's assuming that I have 5 friends. 99.9% of therapists haven't got a clue what D&D is, or Pathfinder, or L5R, or Blades in the Dark, or The One Ring, or Thirsty Sword Lesbians. That was, sorry, side note, that is the group that I played with the other 4 people. If you've never played Thirsty Sword Lesbians, seriously, Corey, play Thirsty Sword
I'll
Lesbians.
pick up a copy. I'll pick up a copy.
Look at that cover. I just love it.
I've seen it around.
It's so good. I love it. We need to provide something that's simple enough for people who just, they're not coming at it from a gaming point of view. They're coming at it from, I'm looking for a tool that I can use with my clients. So it's got to be simple enough for them to understand it quickly. It's got to be simple enough to teach to X number of clients a week. And it's got to focus on the things that are important to the therapy and to the client's needs.
So how does a therapist use an RPG? What kind of information do they get from sitting down with their client and running them through a dungeon and looting treasure?
At the end of the day, the game is just a tool to be used by the therapist, and the therapist will have their own training, their own expertise, their own personal theses of how the human brain works. And each therapist will therefore approach the RPG in the light of their modality, their training. So, for example, I am integratively trained. I mostly use person-centered and psychodynamic counseling, but you could use Gestalt therapy, or you could use ACT. You could, systemic therapy. The great thing about games, the role-play game, is you can actually bring the game into a session and see it in the light of your training. So for me, it's mostly a case of giving the client something to experience. Like we said earlier, helps them engage, helps them approach their difficulties from an arm's length. But being person-centered, I let them kind of lead the way. And oddly enough, person-centered are the people who wouldn't use dice quite as much. But if you're more psychodynamic, you would be looking for information as to how the client character behaves, and then go, well, why do you think the character behaves like that? And you're kind of psychoanalyzing the character and helping the client learn how to psychoanalyze themselves at the same time. And on top of all of that, and this can't be diminished, is just how much fun it is. You know, all of a sudden, your weekly therapy appointment has gone from something, oh God, I've got to do that today, haven't I? I've got to go and talk about how I'm feeling, to I get to roll dice and kill things.
So now we know that RPGs can be a very useful tool to help a therapist, but what about us? Am I doing a heckin' therapy on my friends when I sit down at our table and play a game? When you play, are you delving into your own psyche or helping yourself through trauma?
Is it therapeutic? Absolutely, 100% yes. I mean, how could it not be? You know, you're spending time with people you enjoy spending time with, having fun. That is, in and of itself, a therapeutic experience. Are you being a therapist to your friends? Absolutely not. And there is a distinction to be made between the two. And I do make a point, actually, of saying this in the book. If you are not a therapist, do not therapize your friends. You're just there to have fun, rob a few caves, assassinate a few politicians, and just have a good night out.
I want to know exactly what an RPG therapy looked like. If I'm a client and my therapist recommends this kind of treatment, what should I expect?
In all real respects, just a normal therapy room. You know, you've got a couple of chairs, you've got a little table with a clock, probably a box of tissues. The only difference is you've got a character sheet and a couple of dice. So, and the therapy itself, as any psychotherapist will say, is actually the relationship between the therapist and the client. And the RPG is just a way of giving the therapist and the client a bridge to work together. The game can be fun, it can be creepy, it can be exciting, it can be lonely. You know, I once played a game with a client where literally their character was the only person in existence, which was wild. It was such a good game. But you'll have fun if you play the RPG. And if you have fun in therapy, you'll come back to the therapy. And that's something that a lot of people need, I think.
Role-playing games making a true difference. Maybe one day even saving someone's life. Daniel isn't the only one with this thought. The Cypher System put out a book, We Are All Mad Here, by Shauna Germain. A fairy tale inspired RPG, and they created a world that they believe will help explore trauma and mental health issues. I want to thank Daniel Hand for talking with me about this subject of which I knew very little about, and helping me, and hopefully you, understand it. I think I got so much experience from this talk, I leveled up. But there's always more to learn if you're interested. Daniel's book, Role-Playing Games in Psychotherapy, A Practitioner's Guide, is currently up for pre-order, and the link is in the description, so please check that out. Subscribe to this channel for more tabletop role-playing game content. Right now, I have 1,191 subscribers. In Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, that means I'm a level 3 YouTuber. Hey, let's get me to 20! Level 20 YouTuber coming your way. Special thanks to my patrons on Patreon for supporting my live stream actual plays and my adventure writing habits. Go there if you want some neat gaming supplemental stuff. And lastly, have fun in your own games. Go roll some dice.